The Scum Villain's Self-Saving System, Chapter 69 in Jiahua Temple 2, audio source, wushouworldaudiobook.com. Chapter 69 in Jiahua Temple 2. Wu Wang said, when one or two people have the same dream, it can already be considered to be peculiar. However, if several hundred people have the same dream at the same time, even the word fantastical wouldn't be able to explain this phenomenon. And this dream is completely out of the ordinary. It was too realistic. When you wake up, you would feel as if reality isn't even as vivid as the sceneries from the dream. The cultivators that were at core formation stage were all in agreement with the experience from the dream, and each of them nodded their heads at each other confusedly, hearts filled of terror. Someone questioned, this Tin Long Jun, why exactly was he sealed? If he really is this scary, in the past, how was he sealed? Master Wu Chen sighed. This is another enmity caused by sin. If the palace master of Huanhua Palace was here today, there is no estimate to how much he would sigh with pity. There was a woman's voice full of astonishment. Huanhua Palace's palace master? What does this have to do with Luo Bing? The voice was sweet and clear, like the song of a golden oriole. Shen Qingzhou's gaze followed the sound of the voice. The one that was speaking was a slender, beautiful nun from the Tianyi sect. As for which one, Shen Qingzhou was not able to say, because there were 3 nuns with the same face and outfit, like they came out of the same mold. When they stood next to one another, they looked like 3 astonishingly beautiful blue flowers. Even the feeling that they expressed was the same indescribable, peculiar feeling of excitement. Yes, it really was the feeling of excitement. It was the 3 identical sisters in Luo Bing's inner palace. Long time no see, inner palace. If it was the past, Shen Qingzhou would definitely be overwhelmed with joy. He would then, on one hand, happily push for the scene where the protagonist would chase after a woman while on the other hand, aim a mouthful of complaints towards airplanes shooting toward the sky. But now, Luo Bing's voice was very deep and quiet, but the smell of vinegar has already drifted for over 10 miles. Shizun, are they pretty? Fine, they don't need to bring this up. Shen Qingzhou brought his gaze back. The plot has been changed into a jumbled mess and the 3 nuns weren't made into containers for Luo Bing, so they shouldn't be close to Luo Bing. However, they still expressed concern when faced with information related to him. Shen Qingzhou automatically explained the excitement on their face as the blossoming affection of a young woman. Luo Bing's stallion power was still very powerful. Master Wu Wang said, Amitabha. The palace master that we are speaking of is the old palace master of the last generation. That Luo Bing has utilized sinister means to obtain the title. How can he have the ability to serve as the palace master? Luo Bing lifted an eyebrow and unhappily slanted his mouth. Master Wu Wang continued speaking. However, this situation is inseparable from the Huanhua Palace. A few decades ago, the old palace master had a chief disciple called Su Xian. Shen Qingzhou's spirit was trembling in excitement. Following this development, they are going to unravel the mystery surrounding the birth of Luo Bing. That woman had shocking talent, was intelligent and sensitive when making decisions, and she had the aura of a tyrant. The old palace master loved and cared for this private disciple. He thought of her as a pearl that should be protected in his hands and trained her to be the next palace master of Huanhua Palace. No matter where he went, he would bring Su Xian along with him. The importance that he placed in her was abnormal. Shen Qingzhou thought back to the old palace master in the holy mausoleum with his dull eyes and saliva flowing down his chin. He thought to himself that the old palace master most likely did not think of Su Xian as a pearl that need to be protected. The meat that was exclusively devoured by himself should be more accurate. In the great hall, no one made a sound. There was only the voice of Master Wu Wang. On one occasion, the old palace master and Su Xian followed the requests of a village and went to exterminate demonic creatures. When they were returning back to the palace, they encountered an old city downstream from Luo Chuan. In that city, demons and other evil beings were running rampant. There was not many left of the city's original population. However, Su Xian was able to meet a young man that was out alone in a tea house. That young man had an extraordinary aura coupled with a top-grade appearance. Sitting under a weeping willow, he was singing poetry overlapped by music. This type of character should not have appeared at such a place at such a time. At that time, Su Xian thought that it was strange. She had a brief conversation with that stranger and immediately deduced that this person had a goal and was definitely not ordinary. Shen Qingqiu listened eagerly. Tinlong Jun really was an artistic youth who loved the literary arts in the realms of humans since childhood. And what kind of artistic youth is the scariest? One that looks handsome who is also intelligent. If it was like this, then what happens next can easily be determined. As long as his singing didn't make people feel too sorry for their ears, then the possibility of love at first sight was definitely possible. Who would have known that the plot would take a sharp turn for the worst? Su Xian immediately reported back to her Shifu. As the old palace master thought more on the subject, he also became more wary. When he noticed that the young man was affectionate towards Su Xian and that they were friendly enough to enjoy a conversation, the old palace master decided to use this. He ordered her to get close to the other to get more information. Su Xian had quite a set of skills. She easily discovered that the young man wasn't an ordinary person. He was the current ruler of the great demons that dominated the north and the south, Tinlong Jun. Originally, many would think that in the meeting, the man had feelings while the woman had intentions. However, it actually pertained to the internal affairs between the righteous and demonic sects. This wasn't the common dramatic story of a nefarious sacred ruler of the demonic sect meeting a pure white flower. Instead, it was a story of an innocent king who didn't know that human hearts were filled with evil intentions that met with a tyrannic flower with a heart that was both cold and dark. Shen Qingqiu finally understood the meaning behind the smile, yet not quite a smile that gave off the impression of being cold and ruthless, along with the odd tone of voice that Tinlong Jun had when Shen Qingqiu mentioned Su Xian. The old palace master continued to let Su Xian pretend to get closer to Tinlong Jun while he sent out other people to monitor the situation in the dark. Who would have known that the disciples that he sent out would all be avoided? The old palace master had to personally head out. Finally, all the efforts had not been wasted. They finally discovered the reason Tinlong Jun was staying in the human realm. One day, Su Xian and Tinlong Jun had a meeting on Bailu Mountain. They sat together on the head of a gigantic green snake as they talked quietly. That giant green snake, if he didn't guess wrong, was probably Zhu Zhilang. No matter how he thought of it, only Zhu Zhilang came to mind. Either as a nephew or as a subordinate to be brought out on a date to be a seat cushion. No matter how you hear it, it sounded like Zhu Zhilang was way too pitiful. The old palace master, for fear of being discovered by Tinlong Jun, hid nearby without daring to get too close and listen to their barely audible conversation. Su Xian patiently guided their conversation and took an indirect approach, coaxing Tinlong Jun until he temporarily forgot himself enough to reveal his true purpose for sneaking into the human world. A massacre of the cultivation world in which every sect and faction's treasures will be looted to strengthen the demon race's power. At the last sentence, there was the sound of the crowd gasping as one while Shen Qingqiu sighed. Frankly speaking, this type of typical and cliché boss-like reasoning wasn't Tinlong Jun's style. He wasn't the type of person who would come up with that kind of grandiose plan. Furthermore, as the supreme ruler, Tinlong Jun could enter the demon race's mausoleum, a source of inexhaustible treasures, whenever he wished. This was a person who could arrange vendors' stalls that were full of treasures in a circle on the ground to play with when he had nothing to do. Would such a person really bother with the 4 sects' few treasures? Xiāng had a lot of doubts about this story, but Great Master Wu Wang continued. The old palace master immediately informed the sect master of every great sect about this matter. WuxiaWorldAudio.com. Tinlong Jun met Su Xian twice a month at Bailu Mountain. All the sects agreed on a plan. On their next meeting, the sects would all join forces to encircle and suppress Tinlong Jun. As for what happened then, regarding the Battle of Bailu Mountain, it would be better for Sect Master Yu, who was present at the battle, to narrate the events of that day. Yu Qingyuan said, "There's not much to say about the situation on the battlefield that day. Tinlong Jun didn't expect that instead of Su Xian, he would encounter an attack from all sides. There was only one demon general, Zhu Zhilang, with him who also got caught in the encirclement. Thus, in a manner of speaking, it could be said that their side won the battle." He spoke calmly, not making the slightest effort to whitewash the truth. There were many who had heard their seniors in the sect boasting about the Battle of Bailu Mountain since their childhood. When they heard the real story of the battle for the first time, they felt somewhat embarrassed. Yu Qingyuan said, "Because Zhu Zhilang protected his master, he was struck head-on by my master's Heaven's Wrath technique. The spell wrapped around him and turned him back to his original, half-serpent form. He then fled. Tinlong Jun was suppressed under Bailu Mountain. So it turned out that the reason why Zhu Zhilang was in his half-serpent form at Luji Cave was because of the previous generation's Chongding Peak Master's heavenly thunderbolts. Based on Zhu Zhilang's logic, in which gratitude and grudges are clearly distinguished and the smallest grievance must be avenged." Xiāng didn't have enough time to think about it because the system's notification sound blared in his mind. Mission released. Please help. Luo Bing. Complete the Jiaohua Temple secondary story arc. Objective: the increase in reputation points must not be less than 200 points. Reputation points. Xiāng suddenly remembered what the secondary story arc of Jiaohua Temple was. At this point, Xiāng remembered Xia Huoling's father Zhuzong Jun. This unfortunate demon noble had fallen on hard times when his selfish daughter, who didn't know right from wrong and harmed her own family, lost his territory. He spent some time roaming the southern lands gathering a motley crew, hoping to stage a comeback and take revenge on Luo Bing. However, when he encountered the protagonist's unbreakable halo, plot armor, he couldn't make either of his two glorious wishes come true. Since Zhuzong Jun's plans were repeatedly foiled, he was nursing many grievances in his heart. What could he do about it? Of course, it was to vent his anger on someone else. And that someone else was none other than Jiaohua Temple. This behavior was similar to Xia Huoling's attack on Chongding Peak. Having an exaggerated opinion of one's abilities, not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth, they courted death. When Shen Yuan read that part of the novel, he mentally scoffed at this pair of father and daughter whose brain circuits seemed wired in the same way. In the original novel, thanks to Zhuzong Jun sending a motley group of demon soldiers in the vicinity of Jiaohua Temple to disturb the people and monks there, Jiaohua Temple held a meeting, not to discuss the problem of Tinlong Jun, but to sort out this troubled and depressed group of demons who were looking for others to notice their existence. However, the exact purpose for this meeting wasn't important. What was more important was that this secondary story arc was indeed a way for Luo Bing to improve his reputation. Zhuzong Jun's tribe of demons mixed in with the crowd, waiting for a chance to teach those Buddhist monks a lesson, in the original novel's words. Just a few seconds after they attacked, they were beautifully overwhelmed by Luo Bing's domineering pressure. Like this, his reputation was somewhat raised from absolute evil to neither good nor evil. Xiāng remained silent and looked around. Sure enough, among the crowd were some people who had a sinister look. Very well, the stage was set. 3 beautiful Taoist nuns had an important role in this part of the original plot. These harem members were supposed to act together so that the efficiency of increasing reputation points was higher, but now they have been relegated to the role of onlookers. Conclusion: the female lead's roles were once again given to him, right? Wu Wang solemnly said. In that dream, Tin Long Jun rebuilt his body and bathed the human world in blood until the humans were in a terrible situation. This old monk thinks that this was his way of demonstrating his strength to us and a forewarning of his revenge for the Battle of Bailu Mountain. Someone asked, since Tin Long Jun's original body has been damaged, even if he wants revenge, there's nothing to be afraid of, right? Wu Wang said, you mustn't underestimate Tin Long Jun. He's known as the ancient demon race's most powerful heir, without equal among all the previous members of the past ruling dynasties. Moreover, in addition to his loyal and capable general Zhu Zhiling, who has been restored to his original condition, he also has a son. End chapter.